Hello, BookTube. Well, the reader fatigue apocalypse that is gripping BookTube has reached epic proportions. Those of you who are lucky enough not to know what I'm talking about, it started with a video by Mercy's Bookish Musings in which she asks, "Am I falling out of love with reading?" And that video drew out of the woodwork one response after another of BookTubers confessing to one variation or another of reader fatigue. Just recently, Kamil from What Kamil Reads made a video all the way in Russia seeming absolutely worn out by the idea of reading. Peg, on her channel, admitted that at midnight the other night she crept to her library's external book drop-off, opened the little door, and poured in a gallon of paint. Lukash at Lukash Books says that he's changing his major to corporate finance. Steve Partridge just emailed me the other day and said, what's the exact words? That he hates reading with the fire of 1,000 suns. Curtis Books and Film emailed me just the other day and said that he hates reading as I hate hell, all Montagues, and thee. And of course, there's BookTube's own version of Pearl Bailey, Sean the Book Maniac, who made a video about advocating the joys of bailing on books the minute they disappoint you. It is a truth, universally acknowledged. Bail. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. Bail. Call me Ish. Bail. And in the course of her video, Peg said that one of the things that always helps with her bookish enthusiasm is to read along with literary prizes. And the rationale that she gave was, one of the rationales that she gave for why she might like doing that is because there's the feeling of, well, these things have been vetted. Judges have already created this list. It's curated, in other words, is the modern word. But another aspect that she didn't hit on it quite as heavily, but I think that it is the key aspect for her and for a lot of other people. She mentioned that it's fun to do because there are all sorts of dedicated discussion forums at Goodreads. And keep in mind that my own response to Mercy's Bookish Musings was to try to shift the onus of blame onto Goodreads for a lot of what's sapping the enjoyment out of this experience for a lot of people. But in the process, I mentioned that I'd like to stress that one of the things Goodreads does really well, the thing that it does really well, is community. And Peg mentioned that Goodreads will always have discussion forums dedicated to book awards. But another thing, and that sense of community underscores her enjoyment, and that's also implicit in the fact that it's a prize in the first place, is that these books have gained attention. You know that you're not alone in reading them. And I think that is a key to a way to combat reader fatigue. And it brings me around to the brilliant suggestion that I made for what we can all do to fix things in 2018. You're on your own until then, because it's almost December and the last month of the year is too much for me to get involved in anything, and probably the rest of you as well. But in 2018, I propose that we do the biggest read-along in BookTube history. The biggest one of them all. We'll all download the Voxer that the kids like so much, and we'll use it to do an enormous read-along. We can set the time to be as generous to all of your schedules as possible, since you all have this real life thing that I've heard so much about. And I suggest that we pick a big, ambitious book. And I have 4 suggestions here, but these are just literary. I haven't even thought about really nonfiction, although someone, I think it was a comment on one of my videos, suggested William Shire's The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich, which is a masterpiece of modern history. And it's huge, and it's well worth reading. Nonfiction is a video for another day. But for right now, I had 4 suggestions I wanted to make. The first one being Moby Dick, in some ways the quintessential big I mean to get to it book that some of you have probably read, and it may have left a bad taste in your mouth. Moby Dick is poorly taught. And there are no such things as read-alongs for it. Although there's a live read-along, line by line, sometimes every year, done with live celebrities. It can be quite enjoyable. But I love Moby Dick. It may very well be my favorite American novel, and I would love to do a read-along with the rest of you. I'd absolutely love to. Another suggestion is another book that is always on the index card, back of the envelope, immediately comes to your mind list of big, intimidating books that you mean to do. And that's War and Peace, which I would love to read again in a large group of involved people. That would be so much fun. And there are probably some of you out there who have always been meaning to get to War and Peace. Well, there's no better way to read it than in a crowd of friends. Then the next one is the one that I suggested the first time I brought this up. It's also an undertaking and a little alien, but is it good? It's The Tale of Genji by Murasaki Shikibu, the first and still the greatest novel of them all, which takes a lot of getting used to and is extremely alien, but is at times very beautiful and heartbreaking. And what an accomplishment to read! That, I think, would be so much fun. And then BookTube. There's the last suggestion that I had for this video. We haven't really moved into any other types of reading, but there is one other thing we could all read together in 2018. It would be an accomplishment, and it might end up being a good deal of fun, and that's the Bible. The whole of the King James Bible. Now, all of these things, except for Genji, War and Peace, Moby Dick, and the Bible, the King James Bible, are all available for free. And the Genji is not, although it's been translated, but it's had 4 major English language translations since in just recent times. And when it comes to all 4 of these, if Project Gutenberg doesn't work for you, if you'd rather not read on an electronic, format, we have the time. I would love to discuss, even with Genji, I would love to discuss the possibility of me getting copies to as many of you as possible. I see many copies of these things, and would be happy to do that, or to try to as many of you as possible. I don't know what the book sharing ability is like in rural New Zealand. Maybe you could go to each other's farmsteads. One way or another. There are all sorts of other possibilities. We could read The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich. We could read The Lord of the Rings. We could read a big collected novels of Jane Austen. We could read Middlemarch. We could read a work of history. We have time, and I think that a gigantic read-along, the biggest read-along ever, might be the cure for reading fatigue apocalypse. So once again, I'm perfectly willing to do this. I would love to. Just let me know in the comments, and we'll gear up towards it in the new year. And in the meantime, good luck with reading, I guess. I have not been touched by reader fatigue, so I'm willing to minister to the rest of you. Anyway, thank you. I'll see you soon, BookTube.